There isn't, it depends on your definition of emergency. We need to do something about this. Do we need to do this within 24 or 48 hours? I'm not at all convinced. You remember on Thursday, the markets took incredible solace from what were first rumors, later confirmed, that Paulson and Bernanke were going down to the Hill to talk to Congress about that. Just the feeling of motion that there's a cure. We're on the way to cure. It's important that we keep that going, and nobody think this is going to die on the vine. But to get this done in 24, 48 hours is not that important that we should forget about the United States Constitution, for example, or screw it up so it doesn't work. It's much more important to get it right. And by the way, under the terms of the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac bailout or nationalization or whatever you like to call it, the Secretary of the Treasury has right now powers to buy mortgage-backed securities, the very sort of securities that we're talking about in this $700 billion package.
Okay, beyond that, and I want to come back to the specifics, but are we at a moment in which some fundamental restructuring in terms of sort of the economic structure, clearly it's happened with investment banks, of which there are no more, they've created these holding companies, but in a fundamental way, are we going to come out of this with more government involvement in the financial sector and in the economy overall?
Well, I'd say yes and no. I think it's a journalistic cliche and an exaggeration to when you get into these very tumultuous events, to say the whole world has changed. It'll never go back again. I don't think that that's the case. Two things I think are true. Number one, for many years, for the last 30 years, we've got away from a model in which banks were the intermediary between borrowers and savers. And now the markets are the intermediary, in very complicated ways in which that's the case. It's more efficient, it's lowered the cost, but it's also increased the risk. And it is true that we are going back to a model in which the intermediary, whether it's a bank or something else that we call it, will have to take on more of the risk and the responsibility for the loans that it makes. I think that's true. It's also true that these things will be better regulated, and I think people would say more heavily regulated. I would prefer to say that they'll just be better regulated, but they will not have the same philosophy that's been gone on for the entire Greenspan era, which is basically that underpaid civil servants in Washington shouldn't second-guess the market and shouldn't second-guess people who get paid a lot more than they do to make business decisions.
Join us online at charlierose.com.